Good evening. Welcome to Community Homeworks class this evening. Our topic tonight is Michigan Recycled. Recycles. As soon as I learn how to talk, I can tell you what our program is about. Tonight, our program is part of our Green Living series, which is made possible from a generous support from the Kalamazoo Community Foundation Love Where You Live Environmental Fund. We thank the Kalamazoo Community Foundation for their continued support of our mission and making education opportunities like this possible. We will be having some more green living programs coming up in the future. We're going to try to do one every month. If there's something you'd like to know about for green living, please let me know. You can text me or email me at Community Homeworks Education. It's right there at the bottom of your screen, Community Homeworks Education at communityhomeworks.org, and give me your ideas for future green living programs. I'd really appreciate it. My name is Jean Walker. I do work at Community Homeworks. I'm the Education and Volunteer Coordinator. And tonight, as I said earlier, our program is on Michigan Recycles. Joining us to do the presentation is Jeff from Eagle. Hi, Jeff. Glad you could join us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Please tell us about what you do, what your position is, how you came to being friends with the raccoons, and we'll go from there.
Thanks, Jean. Yeah, my name is Jeff Kirchmerich, and I'm a recycling specialist with the Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy. And I used to have an office in Kalamazoo, but since COVID came on, we've been working remotely. So I miss you guys over there on that west side of the state. And I'm performing outreach to communities to help increase the amount of materials that are being recycled in your community and make sure people in the communities are doing it correctly, because there's many nuances with recycling, and one of them is to make sure you know where to throw it. Know it before you throw it is our campaign, actually, with the raccoons. If you may have seen it on billboards or online, on social media, on TV. So I'll talk a little more about that later. But so I've worked for the state of Michigan for the last couple of years, and I've worked in public works programs prior to coming to the state for a couple of different municipalities. And one of the things I always found enjoyable in my career was waste reduction and recycling, because folks need to, it makes a big difference in our environment. And with Earth Day coming up in a couple of days, I think it's very important to reiterate the need for recycling, because some folks just don't seem to want to, or don't do it the right way. They think they want to do everything correctly, but it ends to be wishful recycling, and it can cause problems in the recycling system. So I'm here to talk about that today, and I'm going to share my screen. I have a presentation. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and I'll answer them at the end. But I have my contact information. If you have any specific questions, look at the screen, and let me share my screen. All right, can you all see that? I hope so. Anyway, so there's my contact information. We do have programs available to all community members. If you would like to contact me in the future for a presentation or visit a site, if you have questions about what you can do locally to change the way recycling and waste management is handled in your municipality, please feel free to contact me. I'm trying to move it over here. Let me see. I'm sorry, I'm having a little difficulty moving it along. Okay, why do we recycle? Well, we have goals set by the governor to improve our environment, to decrease our activities around the behaviors that increase the amount of carbon and have climate change, affect climate change for our communities. So the governor's goal is to be carbon neutral by 2050. that means that we're going to reduce the amount of carbon that we're emitting to the amount that we're using. So that's what it means by neutral. Carbon's in the fuels, in the manufacturing. Carbon is created in very many different processes, even through composting. So what we want to do is to reduce the amount. And one of the ways we can do that is through recycling. And one of our goals is to make sure that 90% of the single family dwellings in areas that have 5,000 or more residents have curbside recycling or have access to it. And by 2028, we want to make sure that communities with 100,000 have at least one drop off for every 10,000 citizens in that community. And we're trying to reach a 30% recycling goal by 2025. We're currently at 18%, but eventually we want to reach 45% by 2035. These are very aggressive goals. However, I'll talk to you more about what we're doing to achieve that. So I mentioned that I'm the specialist on the west side of the state, over here in the pink area, Salmon area. And we have different specialists that handle the area, and that's why I'm speaking with you tonight, since I'm a representative from the west side of the state. We provide all the information, a lot of information about how you can improve recycling in your community. So we provide Recycling 101 handouts. It answers a lot of questions that folks have when it comes to recycling. And it provides some guides, some talking points for community leaders when the question comes up of why should I recycle, or how do I get recycling going in my school, or how do I get it going in my office. We want to make sure they know how to fund the recycling programs in their communities. And so we provide a lot of support for those efforts. So one of the ways we do this is through grants. And this year we're going to have $3.2 million worth of grant monies available to communities to put in infrastructure. That means to build a place where you could put a bin to put recyclables in. We're looking at the places where they're processed at a material recovery facility, and what kind of machinery or artificial intelligence or what kind of new technologies are out there to help improve the recycling to make sure there's no contamination. We're trying to make sure that we look at new technology that's out there and try to implement it to meet our goals. And then we also have market development grants, because once you collect recycling, the main thing is that it should be used locally. And we are trying to create these market development, develop markets for the post-consumer goods. And we have some really great success stories. I'm going to share a little later on, especially one that's in the Kalamazoo area. So what do we provide the grant monies for? Communities that can transition from bins to carts. Those little bins where you used to source separate, where you put paper in one and tin in the other and plastic in the other. Most facilities now that process recycling are single stream. That means that you can put it into one cart, put everything into one cart, and it'll go into the recycling truck and be dropped off as mixed recycling, and then they process it. Now, when you do that, there's some contamination issues because people aren't quite sure, and that's why I want you to know before you throw. But it does increase the volume of materials that have been recovered. And we have a few grants where over time we've shown that the tonnages have increased by like 25 to 30% in terms of the amount collected by switching from bins to carts. We also want public recycling containers, because when people are out at the ball field, or when we go back to the ball field, or when we go back to events, we want to make sure that there are containers to collect those plastic bottles that are generated instead of throwing them out. And so we want to make sure that we have availability at public spaces and also events, because sometimes when there's a special event, a lot of waste is generated, and a lot of it can be recycled or recovered or composted. And we also want to improve the public drop-off recycling. We want to make sure it's no farther than 20 minutes by car to go to a drop-off, one that may be there for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or the one that's just there on the township hall on a weekend. Like I mentioned, we're trying to improve existing infrastructure. That means the collection process, the machinery, the bricks and mortar type of activities that create opportunities, such as the roll-off bin and the slide and the carts and the compactor that's in that picture also. So we're also looking at food waste projects because 20% by mass of our waste is food waste. And there's a lot of opportunity there to capture that food waste and compost it. And we also want to make sure that we can provide collection programs for e-waste. E-waste has been a growing issue for the last 20 years. I got my first grant about 20 years ago for e-waste, and it keeps going strong because we have so many, rely so much on electronic support in our house. And also some of our grant monies goes to direct mailings to residents, so that if you want to have a township that wants to directly mail to every resident, we can help provide funding for that. Now, I mentioned about creating local markets and commodities. One of our grant programs is called Next Cycle, and it was just released yesterday. There was a big press event, and Next Cycle is a partnership with, we have Meyer, Mtera, the packaging group, food packaging group. There's about 15 partners that are providing financial support to invest in infrastructure and collection systems to increase diversion in the state of Michigan, and we call it Next Cycle. There's different tracks, but if you go to our website, check out Next Cycle because there's some opportunities there. What we really want to do is get out to some communities that just don't have the ability or the financing to get recycling in their community, and to give them the seed money to figure out what they need to do and how are they going to make sure that they can provide recycling for their residents if they don't have any. So they're very small grants, they can be very large grants. But the point is to provide support so we can get those who are not in the loop of terms of recycling to get them on board. So like I mentioned, we were working with these different companies, or we're working with Centropolis, which is an incubator group out of Lawrence Tech Institute in Southfield, Michigan. And we're also, it's a public-private partnership. And that's one of the great things is businesses also have the need to reduce the amount of waste that they're creating from the commissaries. When you go to the store and you go to the vegetable section or the prepared food, the prepared foods in the plastic containers, you know, not all of that is used. And how can they best recover those materials and reuse them? And so we're looking for any shovel-ready ideas. If you have an idea where you know exactly what you want to do in terms of increasing recycling, that's one of the things that Next Cycle can help you with. Also, we have an organics section that flows food, liquids, and organic waste systems. Intergovernmental initiatives. There's going to be some monies awarded to communities that work regionally, multi-jurisdictional, multi-county, so that we can get a better effect on the waste shed for those communities, because some of the communities that serve over borders and over county borders, over municipal borders, and there's a lot of advantages to working regionally. Also, roads are a big focus also, because there's materials that we're using right now or getting rid of that can be actually ground up and put into roads. And Michigan Tech University and a few other agencies are looking at small grant projects to test the durability and the feasibility of taking tires and glass and things that are hard to recycle and putting them back into roads. So we're looking at those types of opportunities also. Micro scale solutions, I mentioned, it's for those smaller groups that just don't have the ability to get started in waste diversion or recycling in their community. And we're looking also at recycling innovation and technology. So if the material recovery facility has some artificial intelligence or some optics sorters, it reduces the risk to the workers, and it creates a cleaner waste stream and a higher value commodity when it's shipped out. My staff member that's overseeing that is Matt Flechter, and if you're interested, here's his contact information. We already have some ideas going in terms of food, liquids, and waste. We got contacted by a company out of the Grand Rapids area that's looking to work with the cannabis industry in composting that waste stream, because it shouldn't be going to the landfill. I mean, it has to, but we can also compost it. So those are some of the solutions we're trying to work towards to reduce the amount of waste. So I mentioned we have these goals to get to 45% and by 30% by 2025, and we're currently at about 18.1. But we started kind of low. We started around 14 to 15% back in 2017. So we're making the right direction. COVID kind of gave us a hiccup in terms of reaching our goal, but we're moving forward. And the reasons why we want to is that when you increase those diversion rates to those goals, it brings in jobs, it brings in economic output, and annual labor income also. So there's an economic benefit to these initiatives, not only environmental, but economic too. So one of the things I was mentioning earlier was about, finding end markets. So let me tell you a story. Materials like yogurt cups or cottage cheese containers, those are number 5 plastics usually. And when they get sorted out and separated separately from the 3s and 4s and 6s and so forth, they become a commodity. They go to a facility in Dundee, Michigan, which is just southwest of Detroit, and the plastics are pelletized. And there's a facility in Kalamazoo that takes those post-consumer resins and makes yogurt cups. Now, they can't use recycled content where food container is, where the food contact area is, but they can put 80% of post-consumer plastics into that yogurt cup. Well, then, after they make the yogurt cups, they ship it to a facility in Reed City where the yogurt's made. And so that is what I call a circular economy. Things that we are throwing away that are going to be processed, made into something that's within 300 miles, makes so much sense because it provides economic security because you're not relying on foreign markets. Another story I have is that when the freeze happened in Texas in February, they lost power, and there's a lot of petroleum industry down there, and they create virgin resin for manufacturing of containers. Well, when their plants got shut down, the value of post-consumer plastics shot up. So it was a very a reactive type of commodity issue, but it was just some a reason to show you why we need to keep collecting these materials, because sometimes we can't rely on the existing sources. So we got to make sure if we can create everything locally, our commodities to manufacture things that we use here in the state of Michigan makes so much sense, and it provides so much security for us economically. We also, like I mentioned about food waste being about 20% of our waste stream by mass, composting. There are becoming more food waste composting facilities in the state of Michigan. There's only a handful though. But there's opportunities for vermicomposting. That's one of the things I do at home. Is we take all of our kitchen scraps, post the vegetative stuff, none of the proteins, but you put them in a worm bin, and the worms break them down and make castings, which you could use as a fertilizer or an amendment to your topsoil. Also, hard to recycle things. So I gave you a couple examples of some things that are readily recyclable, but there's a lot of stuff now that we just don't know what to do with, and clothing is a huge one also, and that's another initiative that we're working on with a company in Grand Rapids reusing fabrics. But there are a lot of different other types of plastics that we just have to figure out how we're going to best handle them, especially some plastics that are in automotive or like baby car seats for babies. There's these varieties, these niche of plastic uses that we don't have an answer to yet. So we are looking at that and trying to create the markets for those. Also, mixed glass. Glass is really, there's a couple, none in Michigan, but there's a couple in Indiana that take glass and use it in the manufacturing of fiberglass. But also in the Upper Peninsula, we had provided support, financial support to Marquette County to build a material recovery facility. That's the processing facility for recycling. And they take glass, and they bought a crusher, and they crushed up so fine that in the wintertime they can use it as sand, or use it instead of sand for covering the roads. And it's perfectly safe for the environment and all the animals that live in the area and for folks. So it's some type of technology that we can use to help deter the mining of sand in Michigan. One of the things that we work on is to reduce contamination. With a 20% contamination rate, that costs that facility that in the picture there at least $20,000 a year to clean those materials out of their separating units. And those are plastic bags mainly, and a lot of other things like tanglers, like wires, clothes hangers, cords, rubber hoses, garden hoses, all just mess up this machinery, and it costs money to take them apart and figure out how to clean them to make sure you can run the best operation that you can. So we're looking at our campaign is know it before you throw it. We want to make sure that you know, and the reason why we have to say know it before you throw it instead of put it here is because every municipality has a different waste stream. Like I just mentioned, Marquette County can take glass. Most facilities in Michigan don't take glass curbside. So you really can't say there's one rule for the whole state of Michigan. You have to know through whoever is your recycling provider what they can and can't take. It's really important because some of the drop-offs where there's nobody overseeing the people putting materials into the collection container, some of those have 30% contamination rates, and that's just really more work for the material recovery facility, and it kind of devalues the rest of it. So we want to make sure. So we have our 6 characters here that represent different waste streams, and we use them to get people. They're the hook to make people listen to the rules of recycling. And we've been in 2018 and 2019, we had a huge campaign with Michigan State Stadium, U of M, Comerica Park, buses, billboards. We froze the campaign during COVID, but now we're back on track. And if you go to recyclingraccoons.org, you'll find a bunch of information regarding our grants and how to know where to throw what you have to make sure it doesn't go into the contamination pile. The other resources that we use, there's a nonprofit that's funded by Fortune 500 companies. It's called the Recycling Partnership, and they provide education for communities. I think it's up to $2 per household for your community. And also they offset the cost of the purchase of the carts. So with the City of Holland, for example, we partnered with they partnered with the Recycling Partnership and received a grant. So they got curbside carts, around 9,000 curbside carts for a very reasonable price. The Michigan Recycling Coalition, please check their webpage out because there's upcoming free webinars in late April, next week, and then for 3 weeks afterwards. It's free. I recommend that you go online and take a look at the sessions. We're always virtual now, so it makes it easier to get more people looped in. So please check that out. And also, there's another national organization called the Closed Loop Fund that help fund opportunities to keep commodities local in your area so that we don't have to ship and rely on exports or imports of virgin material. And that's what I had to present. And I'd be happy to answer any questions. Do we have any questions?
They're coming. Hang on.
Okay, I'm going to put my contact information up here first so that if you have any, if you'd like to give me a call or shoot me an email, please feel free to do so. How do I recycle electronics or donate them? Well, there's a few retailers. Check your Best Buy and Staples. Those are two retailers that do take back, but call ahead to make sure that you understand what they take for free, because some things are charged, and I've just been there recently, as a matter of fact. And Staples will also take back. And also, I would go to our Recycling Raccoons website and find out if there are all the other options, because recycling electronics usually are a one-day event for communities. We used to do them like 3 or 4 times a year around our municipality, so they don't do them often. They don't have a 24 or a routine collection system. But please take a look at that at the Recycling Raccoons to find out where to take them. But I just mentioned a couple of retailers that'll do that. What is the most common household item that should not be recycled but is? Styrofoam. There's a lot of styrofoam, or the trays, the styrofoam trays that you get your meats on or vegetables at the grocery store. That is one of the hardest, but there is a foam recycling website. You can find out where one is in your neighborhood, but a lot of folks just put them in their recycling bin, and there's like only one community in the state of Michigan that'll take a curbside. And the other day I was following the recycle truck, what blowout? Styrofoam. So I recommend that you take the styrofoam and take it to a facility next near you, and you can go on to the Recycling Raccoons website to find out where that would be for you. Where do I find out where my county takes for what my county takes for recycling? Please give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'll find out what your municipality is, and I can direct you to the right location. Since I cover western and south central Michigan, it depends on where you live. But if you go to the Recycling Raccoons or mirecycles.org or .gov, you'll be able to find out a location near you. And if my county takes glass, does it have to be clear? It all depends. Some communities, where I take mine personally, is they put clear separate from colored, because it depends on where the market is in terms of where they're sending it to and how it's going to be reused. So that's another note before you throw it type of thing. Sometimes if they say glass, you want to make sure that if it's colored only, make sure, or clear, and make sure it's clean, because like a dirty peanut butter jar, which isn't glass, but that's an example I use, you make sure it has to be clean before you put it in your recycle bin. So I'd be happy, just please feel free to shoot me an email. Is there a public chain of custody regard used to show where the material's gone? Kimberly, there is currently an amendment in process. It's in the House of Representatives in the state of Michigan. And we're trying to make sure that those facilities are authorized and we understand where they are and how much material they're collecting. There's some proprietary issues when we find out exactly what a company is doing, a private company especially. They really want to protect their information of where their markets are, where they're sending it to. So sometimes it can be a touchy situation, but the legislation is going to make sure that some of this information is non-foiable. So we'll be able to get really good information from these material recovery facilities to know what they're operating, making sure that they're operating in a proper fashion. Especially the other issue is the compost facilities. Compost facilities were really regulated, or needed regulations for some areas because of the odor complaints from larger municipalities. And if your community allows composting and it's on the border of another municipality and there's an odor issue, sometimes there's nothing that neighboring community, where it's not the host of that compost facility, can do anything about it. And that's been a problem. So this legislation will clear that up too. Can I recycle my pizza box, the donut box? Oh, that's a great question. Yes, you can recycle pizza boxes as long as they're clean. Make sure you get the gunk out. Hopefully it has a little tray in there or a little something that you can throw out, but make sure they're clean. And if they have cheese sticking to the lid or something like that, put it in the trash. But that's another thing you got to know before you throw it. Same thing with batteries. Can I recycle my batteries? Yeah, some are more dangerous than others. The lithium ones have known to cause fires, so we want to make sure that you're handling those things properly. And just like pizza boxes, you want to make sure it goes into the right place. The donut box, yeah, if there aren't, yeah, exactly. If there's no food on the boxes, you can recycle the boxes. Even if it has a clear cellophane top, please recycle that. That doesn't matter. Same thing with envelopes. If they have clear cellophane on the windows, feel free. So to recycle that. Some of the facilities can handle broad types of paper products. And one of the things right now with the COVID, paper is in high demand to manufacture cardboard boxes. Pratt Industries of their headquarters is in Australia, but they have a facility in Wapakoneta, Ohio, and they are just clamoring to get more recycled paper because they create boxes for Amazon, so other folks. So we want to make sure that we can get as much fiber out, and that's one of the things. And the commodity prices have shot up also since COVID. Where can I recycle tires? There are in Southwest Michigan. Each county has their own collection program. I would contact your county health department to find out when the next tire collection is. They usually have 1 or 2 a year, and they get grant money from us, from Eagle, to run those collection programs. Yes, and cardboard boxes do have to be flattened. Please make sure that they're, and don't put things inside cardboard boxes like other containers and put them in your bin. We don't want everything nesting inside of each other because that's really hard to recycle also. But make sure you flatten your boxes. And when you put your boxes out at the curb, make sure the lid, if you have a cart, make sure the lid is on the cart, because wet cardboard, if it rains or snows, can't be recycled. It can contaminate the whole truck. So we want to make sure that you keep the lid down, keep everything dry. Water is an issue when it comes to recycling.
We've had some really good questions this evening.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's always a tough, because every community is different. When you talk on a broad base of Southwest or Western Michigan, there's a lot of different opportunities all over the state. So like I mentioned, Marquette, recycled glass. Some places you can't recycle glass. So you got to just know where your material is going, and that's what we're here to do. Let you know.
Can you tell us again what you have to do to be able to see the raccoons? Are they on Facebook, or is it a website?
Yeah.
Or
Yes, you can go down to Facebook, go to the recycling website, Recycle Raccoons website, or a Facebook page. They also have their own page on Eagle. So just go to Recycling Raccoons, and you'll Google it, and you'll find all the locations you need to get all the information regarding note before you throw it. And we also have our information regarding our grant programs on there. So please visit the site and keep an eye out for them. Hopefully they'll be back out in the fur, not in the flesh, but in the fur here in the next couple of weeks or months. So we'll see how that goes.
Are public schools being encouraged to have recycling in their cafeteria areas or in hallways?
Yeah, I have a great story to tell on that. Dexter Community Schools received a grant for carts and dollies, because when you collect it in a school classroom, you have to have a place a hub to dump it all, and you need dollies to take it out to the cart, up to the collection bin, and it's got to be light enough for the kids to handle. They saved in 9 months. They saved around $18,000 in solid waste pickup because they increased the recycling. So they reduced the amount of waste that they were throwing into bins. They were paying less, and then they were recycling more. And so it actually shows not only are the kids doing the behavior, but also saving the school money by doing that. Now, and they'll even increase the amount, since a new recycling facility in their neighborhood will be able to take the milk cartons. We call them the gable tops, like we get half and half in, or a little half pint of milk. they're going to be able to take those, which are common in school cafeterias, and they'll be able to increase even more. So, yes, schools, there's a couple other programs regarding school recycling. Please let me know where you are, and I can connect you to any resources in your area. Not everybody, if you're in a more rural community, there's not as many service providers, so we gotta find out what works best for you.
What about small businesses such as ours? Are we allowed to have, I call it my my recycling Herbie Kirby. Can we have one of those, and will it be picked up by my local recycling truck?
It depends on where it's being shipped to. So if you have a Granger, for example, coming by, they're the ones that can be able to provide you the information regarding what can be picked up and what can't be picked up. I don't know, because I know they had the Kirby campaign. That's why I mentioned Granger. But yeah, you'd have to just contact them to know where your materials go. But if your community doesn't have it and they just have trash, contact your community leaders to find out why they don't have a recycling program and the need for it.
Well, we have good recycling program here in Kalamazoo, but I didn't know if as a small business, I mean, we shred papers, things like that, you know, and
yeah.
Can we get a cart to put it in, and will they then pick it up?
Every municipality is different. I know some smaller communities, they provide bins for their businesses downtown. Grand Haven does. Dexter does. There's a few communities that it's done through the municipal contract, so that these business owners can get a curbside bin because they're not a big retail store or a wholesale store, or they're not a restaurant. They're just small offices, and yeah, they should be able to include that if they have a contract for residential for the smaller businesses, smaller business communities too.
Yes, so many small businesses do have a lot of paper to recycle, and I hate seeing it go in the landfill when it could be going to better purpose.
Right, right.
I was a child when recycling kind of came into, you know, its heyday, and we were always taught that reuse was better than recycle. Is that still a pretty strong feeling that if you can repurpose something, you're better off?
Upcycle, we call it. Yeah, we want to upcycle. We want to make sure that it's used in the first place. Like clothing, for example. Some people, there's some small businesses that take existing clothing, they refurbish it into reusable or resaleable clothes. So also there are like a bike repair. Instead of getting a new bike, find out what's wrong with your old bike and see if you can get it fixed instead. There's some communities that have these do-it-yourself classes. Some libraries I know will provide some training on that. There's some resources out there to upcycle things, so you're not throwing things away all the time.
Great, because I've always tried to reuse before putting it in the recycling or the garbage or the compost pile.
Right.
Well, again, thank you for sharing so much information. Does anyone else have any questions? Now's your chance. Again, we'd like to thank the Kalamazoo County I can't talk tonight. The Kalamazoo Community Foundation, Love is Where You Live Environment Fund, for funding our program this evening and for helping us to do a series of green living programs that we hope you will enjoy. We all do get the View from the Curb newsletter every month or so, or quarter, in our mail. It does have a lot of recycling and environmental things in it to help us be a little bit more green as we clean up our yards this spring. And of course, we have the quarterly large washing machines, refrigerator type recycling program. And that's quarterly, and that information as to when your neighborhood is also in that newsletter. Jason, can you think of anything you'd like to add?
Nope, I didn't have anything else either. Great program tonight. Thank you very much, Jeff and Jean, for your input. I really appreciate you both being here.
Thanks,
Thank
Jason,
you,
for inviting
Jeff.
us. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.